Thanks. I appreciate it, Bob. The 15 minutes works well because I'm really only interesting for about 12 minutes. So that's.
We'll endure the last 3.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to start by sharing a video, and the purpose of the video is really to set the stage for the idea that we have a variety of interpretations of what social entrepreneurship is, and today what I'm going to talk about is one variation of how we at Women's Beam Project, through our social enterprise, endeavor to be social entrepreneurs. So let me just share my screen and we'll get going.
To me, I think the phrase social entrepreneurship is really about all entrepreneurship, right? Every company, every organization, every NGO has an impact on people. And this community, I think, is just saying that that impact is just as important as making money.
To change or catalyze society, to build a new, better, sustainable, either economy or social structure or political structure or civil structure, to secure rights for individuals who previously been marginalized, to incorporate and bring people into more philanthropic or rather financial opportunity that they've not known to have to be able to participate and move up.
I think it's really figuring out a way to make a difference in the lives of people in a sustainable and profitable fashion.
I didn't know that I was a social entrepreneur until several years ago when someone told me that's what I do. And so I think of it now as people who find challenges in our global society and they use innovation, they use techniques, technology, business in new and innovative ways to create solutions for those challenges.
And social entrepreneur for me is about changing systems to promote healthful, happy, dignified human beings.
I struggle a little bit with social entrepreneurship. When I interpret it as committed social activists who are exploring powerful ways to drive change. I think everyone brings their own definition to social entrepreneurship. That's the way I see it.
So happy to be here, and to me it's all that social entrepreneurs, because they are a solution giver. They think about how we can build our communities, how we can bring solutions to the problem that our community are facing. And that's exactly what we do in Benin also with Terra Benin, and we try to do our best and to be an answer, you know.
So social entrepreneurship to me is a different type of innovator that's not afraid to think beyond sort of the traditional status quo. So what they're really trying to do is understand, how do I enable social change in a way that's sustainable and systemic, that really attacks the levers of poverty or injustice, inequality, whatever the issue may be, but they're trying to do it in such a way that their work and their impact will persist long after they're gone.
So that was clear, right? I want to share this continuum with you. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I want to share this continuum with you because I think it's kind of helpful in framing why social enterprise and social entrepreneurship has such a variety of interpretations or definitions. So if you think about social good sort of happening on a continuum, there are lots of different ways companies and individuals can do social good. You know, so there's on the far left in the screen, there's the traditional nonprofit NGO charity model where it's purely charitable. All the funds are raised philanthropically or through an endowment. And so that is, and all the good is done as a result of those funds raised. And then as you move closer to the middle, there are models where organizations sell products or services as a part of delivering on their mission. That's the model that I will talk about, but yet they're still 501c3. So that's their tax structure, not their business model. But they're still in our terms, a nonprofit. And then as you move farther over to the right, you end up with models where individuals are social entrepreneurs, but they're using a for-profit business model. Tom Shoes is a great example of, as you move farther over to the right, where the buy one, give one model with for every pair of shoes that is purchased, a pair of shoes is given to someone who needs them. And benefit corporations are starting to fill that role farther to the right, where they have people, planet, and profit as a part of their model. And then, of course, as you move all the way over to the far right, you have traditional businesses whose purpose is really for shareholder benefit. So as we're talking about social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, I think that this spectrum is kind of helpful because you can land a lot of different places on this spectrum and still be a social entrepreneur. And some of the reason that there's a lot of debate, I think, in this world is because there is a spectrum and there's not one place to land. So I'm going to talk about Women's Bean Project as a model of a social enterprise. And this moniker of social entrepreneur, I think, got added after the fact, and something that perhaps I'm working to embrace. But really, I operate a social enterprise. At Women's Bean Project, we believe that all women have the power to transform their lives through employment. So we hire women who are chronically unemployed. A typical woman we hire hasn't had a job longer than a year in her lifetime, though the average age is 38. They have long histories of addiction and incarceration, and though they've had jobs, they haven't been able to keep them. And so as a result of coming to the Bean Project, they're hired for a job, and they learn to make our products that get distributed across the country. And more importantly, they learn to stand tall and find their purpose and ultimately break the cycle of poverty. We do this work fundamentally because we believe that when you change a woman's life, you change your family's life. We were founded in 1989. We're like the OG of social enterprise. It's funny that now there's a term because there really wasn't when we were founded. Our founder was volunteering at a daytime homeless shelter for women and kids. She was getting her master's degree in social work, and so she had to embed in this organization for a whole school year. And what she saw was that women would come in and use the services of the shelter, and the shelter would keep them safe during the day. Eventually, the women would leave and not be coming daily because they'd get a job. But yet the same women kept coming back over and over again. And what she saw was that while they had the skills to get a job, they didn't have the skills to keep it. So she came upon this idea that if she could teach the women to work by actually working, in her mind, that would be the cure for poverty. She invested $500 of her own money in beans and hired 2 women to make 10 bean soups. That was our original product. There was no market research or anything fancy. She just was in her late 50s and noticed that a lot of her friends were eating bean soup for health reasons. And so that was they had a local chef who helped them come up with the recipe, and that was the beginning of Women's Bean Project. They made soup for the 1989 holiday season, so October through December, and during that period, they made $6,100. Wouldn't that be nice to have that kind of return on investment on all of our investments? That was really the beginning of the social enterprise we are today. Today we are about a $2.5 million operation. You can find our products in about 1,000 stores across the country, and mostly, frankly, online channels, and through some of the country's largest retailers. In a year today, we hire about 60 to 70 women. And I'll talk a little bit more about our model, but from that original $500 investment in 1989, that really was the genesis of the social enterprise we are today. So we are what is called a transitional employment program. And what makes us transitional is that women stay with and work with us for 6 to 9 months. And anything longer than 9 months is generally not considered transitional. So our entire goal from the very beginning is that she comes and works with us in order to get the next job, in order to move into the community, into mainstream employment. And so there are two parts of her job when she comes to us. The first part is the Bean Project job, where she works in our manufacturing business. We are a dry food manufacturer, so we assemble all of our products at our location and distribute from here across the country. And on the production line, she's learning food safety, she's learning attendance and punctuality and how to pay attention to detail, how to communicate with her supervisor, how to resolve conflict. And she is paid for this full-time job. She works 36 hours a week. Every woman gets Wednesday afternoons off to take care of appointments. And the women are paid what is our current minimum wage. And then we have the other part, and 70% of their time is spent doing the Bean Project job. And then 30% of their paid time is spent doing the U job, Y-O-U. What we call the U job is when the women are working on themselves. And so during that time, they're stabilizing themselves. Perhaps they're getting stable housing. We help subsidize their transportation costs, but they also pay for their transportation costs. We help make sure that if necessary, they have childcare. So all the basic needs are the first things that we address. And then we have core classes where the women are in financial literacy, adult literacy and numeracy classes, maybe getting her GED if that's a realistic and necessary goal while she's with us. But there's a whole curriculum that the women go through during the time they're with us. And then we're also doing a wide variety of sobriety support. So our business, as I mentioned briefly, started with a 10-bean soup mix. Believe it or not, 31 years later, 10-bean soup is still our bestseller. And during the pandemic, it really actually, our products have actually really done well. We've expanded through the years because bean soup doesn't exactly say summer. I've been pushing chili dogs for years, but it hasn't really made a difference in our sales. So we've expanded to baking mixes. We have cornbread mix and brownie mix and cookie mixes. We have popcorn blends and spice blends. We've recently introduced some instant products, instant beans and rice. And in the next few months, we'll be introducing some instant breakfast items. We have coffee and tea and snacks and kind of anything except lima beans that are beans. We have coffee beans and jelly beans and chocolate covered espresso beans. And the beautiful thing about beans is it really lends itself well to lots of jokes. Greg Moffat, you'll appreciate that. And also, it really is a great metaphor, I think, for growth and prosperity. And what we found through the years is we have become, in a way that I would have never expected, we've become a gift item. So I think we're probably the only way you could get away with giving someone a gift of a bean soup. So one of the ways that we've grown through the years is that someone discovers Women's Bean Project, and then they think of someone they know who would appreciate the mission, and they give our product as a gift, and then those people become customers. And then it grows from there. We ultimately envision a day when employers hire based on talent and potential rather than background. 90% of the women we hire are felons. And we have recently started a relationship with Colorado Department of Corrections to hire women on work release in the few months prior to their release, so that they are released into the community with a job, money in the bank, and housing, so that they can end relationships. The three keys to decreasing recidivism are employment, relationships, and housing. And so making sure that as women are released into the community, they have all of those things in place is a big part of our work. But ultimately, we want to change the hearts and minds of employers. When someone goes to prison, they have served their sentence. When they're released, and our society continues to punish them, even though they have served their sentences. And our work is to begin to change how people think about formerly incarcerated. So Ben Franklin, I think, said it best, and I think this is what social enterprise and social entrepreneurship is, doing well by doing good. Ultimately, we can't exist without the sale of our products. That is how our structure has been created. The sale of our products allows us to pay the women a wage. We do fundraise to support our program activities, and currently we're fundraising for a new building. But so our 501c3 status gives us the capability to do that. But ultimately, none of it matters if we're not delivering on our mission. We do not make bean soup for the sake of making bean soup. We make it so that we can serve the women. And so I will end there so we can start a conversation.
Okay, thanks, Tamra. So to the panel, I don't know if you heard Tamra speak at last year's forum. She was one of our lunch times, and it was completely inspiring. And this, Tamra, you caught me off guard. This is even more so. It is just such a compelling business unto itself, but the model of it as well. And even the clarification that you did in the showing the kind of the gradation there from a pure, what I can think of as a nonprofit to a for-profit business model. And I would like to actually lead with a question with that around the idea of the concept of the tax code of the 501c3. When does it actually cross the line as far as how you funnel back in profit? So I'm used to a very traditional, this is a nonprofit, and therefore all profits are going back into programming operations and so on. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I can speak to our justification. How about that?
Okay, sure.
So all of the work that we do and all the sales that we create, with the exception of our coffee, that's a private label relationship where it's roasted by someone else and it has our name on it. The women are a part of creating the product. So it's directly tied to the mission. It's directly tied to the work that we do. If we had a significant amount of sales from products that we didn't touch, we would be responsible for unrelated business income tax, and which frankly is fine because that is income tax and that means you have income. But there is some speculation with the IRS rules that if you reach a certain percentage of sales that you can have some problems. In my experience and in talking with social enterprises across the country, there really hasn't been a time that any of us are aware of where the IRS has gotten in the way of that. I think that the key is that you're always justifying your work through your mission. So in our case, our business doesn't exist just to be being a food manufacturer. It exists because it's a means through which we deliver our mission. And I think that's the check you always have to have with yourself as a social enterprise. Right. As long as what you're doing is a means through which you're delivering your mission, I think then you're fine. If you ran off and started doing something else and trying to justify it through your 501c3 that wasn't directly related to the mission and wasn't a social benefit, I think that's when you really start to have a problem.
Okay. I have a whole line of questions, but I want to defer to the panel.
Tamra, hi, this is David White. I was actually at a prison entrepreneurial program luncheon yesterday and wondering if you are familiar with that organization, PEP, which has a similar mission to yours?
Yep. Yeah. What I really love is that there are many organizations across the country. We have many peer programs across the country. that really are focused. We weren't founded to focus on formerly incarcerated individuals, but certainly in the time we've existed, the 31 years, that in our case, the female inmate population over the last 4 decades has increased over 800%. And so we've sort of been positioned in this place where now the need for helping our community members re-enter our communities is dire.
And my question is, you discussed one of your goals is to change the way employers view women coming out of prison. My question is, do you think that women need to go through a program similar to yours in order to be, attractive and be stable employees with traditional employers?
I think that it makes a huge difference. I will tell you that employers are more likely to hire our graduates than someone with the same background who comes and applies for a job. Every woman, even as our unemployment rate, across the country has increased during the pandemic, every woman who has graduated our program has found a job within a week and gone on to employment in the community. And I think that having Women's Bean Project or a program like Women's Bean Project on her resume is making a huge difference. So I do think it makes a difference because, and one of the things we focused on as an organization is when someone graduates our program and we say she's successful, what does that look like? Because that's our brand promise, right? In the same way that making a great bean soup is part of our brand promise. Graduating a woman with the skills that employers want, with the stick-to-itiveness in her employment, with the ability to communicate with her supervisor, with all of those skills that employers say they want, a woman who comes to work every day and on time, that's our brand promise. So I think that that's how we've tried to think about it, and therefore employers trust when a woman comes from when a graduate comes from the Bean Project, that they wouldn't necessarily have in another candidate.
Can I follow up on that and ask? I assume you track your graduates, and could you share a little bit of your methodology and your data on that?
Sure. So we check in with graduates at 6, 12, 18, and 24 months. And we don't have a ton of data for 24 months because we've added that in the last year or so. We pay them to check in with us. So at 6 and 12 months, we pay them $50 to check in. At 18 months, we pay $75, and at 2 years, we pay $100. We did that really because we wanted it to be a dollar amount that was meaningful. And so we would hear from graduates. And what that does is it gives us 2 opportunities. One, it allows us to hear from the women and be able to track their employment. But it also allows us, if she's struggling, maybe if she needs access to housing or other resources, we can connect her to those resources. And then if she's doing well, we can invite her to come back and talk with our graduate or with the women who are currently in the program. So it really works well all the way around. Typically, our employment at 1 year is about 95, 96%. Interestingly, in May and June, when we were doing a 1-year follow-up, 100% of the graduates were still employed.
Nice.
So that surprised me also, but so 95% is typically about where we end up.
Tamra, what percentage of your staff is focused outside of the operations of the production of the product? Meaning, I don't know what we call them, the social, the group that is, that's managing this aspect of
the program operations.
Yeah,
yeah,
outside of the bean production.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so we have 2 primary staff members who are entirely responsible for program operations. And then we always have social work interns who are with us. Right now we have 3. And so social work interns help provide case management support. But really, just about every staff member has some responsibility for aspects of the program. It's sort of the idea of you need to be able to identify a teaching opportunity and then kind of know what to do with it. So as an example, our controller often will sit with a woman and help her work on her personal budget after she's had the financial literacy class. And the reason for that might be because a woman has come to her multiple times and asked for an advance. And so they sit down together and work on, on how to better manage her finances so that she won't need an advance. Our marketing and e-commerce manager will work with women on how to tell their story. Because that's a really important part for the women, is knowing how to communicate with a prospective employer or with the community, how to tell her story. So every person in our organization has some responsibility to the women, but in terms of the dedicated staff, it's about a half dozen people.
Okay.
Hi, Tamra. Thank you so much for the work you do. It's very inspirational, and it warms my heart. So my question to you is, beyond the walls of your business, your social enterprise, what is the impact? Do these women have children, families, and the impact of their families? Is there support systems in place for them through your project, and the impact to the community as a whole?
Thanks for that question, because I think that is probably the most important aspect of what we do. And why, when I said earlier that when you change a woman's life, you change her family's life. Every woman who comes here has an average of 3 children. She doesn't necessarily have custody of her children when she comes here, because if she's just being released from incarceration, she would have lost custody. But often she's trying to get custody back, or she's trying to reestablish relationships with her kids. So it's a really important part of her life, is reestablishing the relationships that she needs to, reestablishing the respect. One of the things, and I think men and women alike struggle with this, but I can specifically speak to how women struggle with the shame associated with addiction and incarceration, and most importantly, leaving her children. And in our society, we demonize women much more than men if they've left their kids. And so a lot of what she's dealing with and what we're supporting her through is how to reframe who she is. We recently filmed a video with one of our graduates who started out very skeptical about the program, and then ultimately was just a total rock star. But in this video, she really surprised me, because she just said, I used to think I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a good enough sister, girlfriend, mother, all the things that, we as humans tend to put on ourselves, about that I think women do even more so. And so what we're working with the women on is realizing that they're worthy. They're worthy of having a better life. They're worthy of being hired by an employer who cares that they come to work every day. And they're worthy of reestablishing their relationships with their kids in a different way. So all of those things, we talk about a job and we talk about financial literacy or computer classes, but really that internal dialogue or monologue that you have ultimately is what we have to address, because that affects how you show up to your job and to your kids, etc. The last thing I want to say is much more data oriented. Mathematica did a job study in 2015, and they found that for every dollar an employment social enterprise like Women's Bean Project spends, the return on investment to society is $2.23. Again, wouldn't you like to have that kind of ROI on all your investments?
Right.
Tamra, at the risk of getting into the weeds, you're selling a product on a shelf. I assume you have to price the product to compete with other similar products, and not just to attract customers who are willing to pay a premium because of your brand.
Right.
And with that constraint, you have to be able to make enough money to fulfill the real mission, right? How explain a little bit about how you have to strike that balance, because it's fascinating, because you're obviously you want to be profitable when you've got to price competitively. That's hard, especially in the food business.
Yeah, and I think if I were gonna, if anybody who's listening today is thinking about starting a social enterprise, I wouldn't recommend food. Just start with that. But that's, 31 years later, that's where we are. It is a constant challenge. So we are, what I love about this is we have to entertain two ideas that are competing and conflicting at the same time. And I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind if you want to pursue a social enterprise, is you really always have to entertain two conflicting ideas. And that is that in this case, it is watching our cost of goods sold. So how inexpensively can we get the packaging, and at what volume? And is that a volume that A, we can afford to purchase, and B, that it doesn't necessarily behoove us to have 5 years worth of packaging for something, even though the price is really low. And then we also have labor costs, and the cost of, we intentionally hire for inefficiency at the beginning, right? We're hiring people, we don't know if they're going to come to work every day or on time, or and then we take them off the production line for 30% of their paid time. So everything that we do sort of is counterintuitive to managing our costs, and yet we look for a particular margin, and we sell at several levels. So we sell at retail level, wholesale level, and then to grocery distributors. That's our lowest margin channel, but it's our highest volume. So I think of it like a pie. I want the pie to get bigger, but I have to watch my slices, because I can't have any one sales channel that is a lower margin outpace a sales channel that's a higher margin. And so, I guess this is a rambling answer, or as my husband likes to say, Curly, that was a long road to a small house. But the reality is, it's just something we're constantly trying to manage, no margin, no mission. So if we get rid of products that don't have enough of a margin, even if they're great products.
I think that was a very concise answer, Tamra.
Tamra, I want to ask a question for some of the young people that will be tuning in to this, or are tuning in. I lead a program, social entrepreneurship program, for middle school and high school students. And many times we get into the conversation of some of the pitfalls of jumping straight into the solution, rather than deeply empathizing with the problem and the target audience in which you seek to uplift and serve through the social enterprise. Can you share how does empathy, how through empathy have you evolved your programs over time and listened to your women, and how has that informed your work?
That's an interesting question, because I think that a lot of people are driven to be in this field because they feel compassion, and there's, in my mind, a difference between compassion and empathy. I think, in my experience, the first time I sat across I've been in this role for 17 years, so I've had a lot of opportunity to sit with hundreds and hundreds of women. But the first few times I sat across the table and talked with a woman and heard her story, and realized that except for the accident of birth, we really were no different. A lot of the things we worry about in terms of our hair, or our complexion, or men in our lives, or whatever, we're really not very different. But because I can't tell you how many times I've had a woman say to me, when I was growing up, I didn't know anyone who worked. So what do we think as a society is going to happen? And so that sitting down and listening, and really recognizing that I'm not here to save anyone. I'm really here to help people on a path. This isn't about me. This is about potentially using my privilege to help someone get access to a job and to getting her kids back and to dignity and feeling worthy. And I think you have to, in order to feel empathy, I think you also have to realize it's not about you. Compassion, I think, sometimes drives us to a savior mentality. And I think empathy gives us the opportunity instead to really think about how can we use what we have to help another person. And I think there's a difference there.
So one question I had for you is at the company I work for, Guild Education, the mission is to serve working Americans to get them back into school and hopefully to graduate. And to do that, we partner with big employers. And it's a funny thing because at like the very beginning, all of the needs are aligned. But then there's times where some of the employers are trying to change something to their policy that maybe is starting to become maybe misaligned with student outcomes and things like that. And it's sort of in the best interest of the company to sort of play both of those sides, because the goal is to help as many students as possible, so you can't lose all of your partners. So curious if you've experienced like more like external partners that have slightly misaligning goals as yours, that ever kind of become a problem in this space.
Yeah, it's happened a number of times that I can think of. One example is an organization that was just formed, and the role they were trying to serve was with working with people after they finished programs like the Bean Project program. And then on the other side, finding employers and basically serving as a job developer, so job placement. In order to improve their outcomes, they went into employment social enterprise and sort of cherry picked the people that they wanted to work with. I fundamentally have a problem with that, because I don't think any of us are really very good at guessing who's ultimately going to be successful. And so their goal, which was noble on the one hand, which is trying to help people after they finished and by sort of hand-holding in the next job, on the other hand, really was counter to the work that we were doing, which was, being so selective that it made the people who weren't selected feel like they weren't worthy. That's not what we're about. So I think that that's a challenge. Is ultimately, I have to come to work every day and do what's right for our company, and do what's right for our mission. That's my responsibility. And sometimes that looks like not working with certain partners or not continuing to have certain employees here. I mean, ultimately, those hard decisions get made because I have to keep my eye on the prize, which is fulfilling our mission.
Tamra, if I may, one more question. It's kind of a two-part question. In the 17 years that you've been there, and I would like to applaud your mission and your dedication as well. What are the KPIs or metrics you've used or you've tracked that represents the scaling of your business to impact more women? Is it something? I mean, is it part sales or operating profit, and is it solely number of women that have gotten jobs? And then the second part of the question is, do you have a desire to scale further, and what is the 2 or 3 greatest challenges to scaling?
Okay, well, so the first part is there are a number of things we measure, but fundamentally sales create jobs. So our ability to hire women is predicated on our sales. So that's the first metric. But then for a long time, and so I have to say that the things we're paying attention to have shifted over time, as we've realized that perhaps graduation rate was something that was sort of our main metric. What percentage of women graduated the program? And while that's important, I don't think it's of paramount importance any longer, because someone could perhaps be here. The average tenure is about 7 months. So if someone is here for 4 months and then ultimately doesn't complete the program, that doesn't mean she wasn't impacted. That just means she didn't complete the program. So having that one thing be how we measure everything, it didn't make sense. So we've started to look at more discrete things, and we've begun to measure changes in hope, changes in self-sufficiency, and changes in self-esteem while the women are here. And we do those measurements multiple times throughout their tenure, from the beginning, several times in between, and then at the end. Those are the things that start to intrigue me, because if we can ultimately change someone's hope, whether she graduates our program or not, that's going to have an impact on her when she leaves us. And I think it will be very interesting over time to look at changes in hope and compare that to graduation rate, or compare that to long-term success. Does she keep a job for 2 years afterwards? So those are kinds of things that we're starting to measure, because I think, again, that one thing just doesn't tell the whole story. And then, of course, I want to know, does she leave us and keep a job? Because that's super important also, is ultimately, have we affected change that sticks? That's what we want to know. We know that employment is the key to breaking out of poverty and staying out of prison. So we want to know, does she keep that job? So our goal is, yes, to scale, to grow bigger, to better serve this community. We have national distribution, so we've been reluctant to have other women's bean projects pop up around the country. However, that said, in addition to, when I talked about envisioning a day and changing the hearts and minds of employers, we also want to be in a position to help other social enterprises around the country and lift up the whole field. And so we're in the midst of, we're in the early part of a capital campaign to move to a new building. We'll move in March of 2022. We'll acquire the building. We've identified the building. We're doing it in partnership with Denver Housing Authority. They'll build housing adjacent to us that our women will have access to, and we'll be renovating this building starting next summer. That building is twice as big as our current facility and will allow us to grow our business and also expand a business where we will do work for other companies and assembling product and things like that. We've had a lot of opportunity to do that, and we don't have space in our current location. The purpose of that is not to make more product for other companies. The purpose of that is to create more jobs. Right. And if we can create more jobs, we can have a greater impact. I think last year was our 30th anniversary, and it was really poignant for me because it really helped me see that in 30 years, the number of women who need us hasn't changed. And the reasons why they need us has, but in 20 years from now, if we're not careful, we'll just be serving the daughters of the women we serve today. And I don't think that should be okay with us. Yeah. I want to come to work every day trying to put ourselves out of business, or maybe we have to do something crazy like start to hire men. Ultimately, to me, that's what we should go to work every day thinking about, is how to grow this to the point where there are no more chronically unemployed women in our community. And I'd like to help other groups across the country do that as well.
David, thanks for that question. Tamra, that is a beautiful punctuation to all of this. And talking about the measure of hope and inspiration, I will tell you, it's significant for the work we do with Shoulder to Shoulder. But how we do it is we believe fundamentally we want to put young people in front of people like you, people that are thinking about how they want to make a difference in the world, and trying to figure out how they can do that and enter the world in a way where they can be independent and have a profession and so on. And we just believe there's nothing more powerful for young people than moral example. And you are surely that. And the inherent problem with my comment here is it means I'm going to be calling you And because I would like for you to spend as much time as possible with Shoulder to Shoulder and all of the young people that we're working with. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For your good work and for your generosity to us today, and your generosity to the world, and so on. And again, for people that are off screen, people on screen, if you want to learn more about Tamra, Bill, you have probably been putting things in the chat box, I'm guessing.
I have, yeah, and I just reshared the link there. So.
Okay, great. And maybe Valentina, you and I can work together to bring some students, high school students who are in social entrepreneur classes and discussions and so on. And Tamra, this is where I become a pain in the neck, which means I'm getting back to you and trying to get you in front of these kids. But as far as even your last comment of trying to put yourself out of business, it's just a beautiful vision. And again, that's we're really appreciative and would like to bring that vision to this next generation. So thank you so much. Panelists, thank you for helping us, bring more and more dimension to this conversation. And this is, 45 minutes seems so short, but it can be so powerful as well. And how we want to help you is we're recording this. We're going to produce it, and we'll have it available in a couple of weeks. And we're hoping that you will take it to your people, whatever that is, whether it's your companies. Sean, maybe this is something you can take to Guild, because I can see a connection between Guild and what Tamra is doing. And we have people that are involved in colleges, universities, and so on. And so we'll have that ready for you in a couple of weeks.
Hey, Bob, I apologize. A quick administrative question.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, for those that are not, experts at Zoom, can you tell us how we access chat post session?
To access the chat post session?
So all the information you talk about that's in chat rooms, once the session's gone, I can't access it.
You can't access, no. I think I can download it and maybe post it when I post the sessions. I think I could download the chat data.
And I don't really care about the questions. I care about the information, whether it's, links to different articles or books or.
That I put on that last link that's there, and I'll also share it when we post the video. I'll post a link to that Google Doc. So I'm trying to, anything that our speakers are mentioning, I'm posting them onto a Google Doc. So it actually isn't even in the chat feature. So I'll make sure that when we produce this, it has like Tamra's video, and then resources, which has the links to her book, has links to Women's Beans Project, all of that in one document.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking that. I think everybody's dealing with that. Nobody ever asked the question. So thanks.
And just one follow-up. Are you sending out Google Doc invitations as you go, or will that be a week or two from now?
For the recordings?
You keep mentioning Google Docs, and I haven't received an invitation for any Google Doc, and I'm just wondering, am I missing it?
If you click chat on your computer right now.
Once again, I can't access chat on any of the old ones.
Yeah. So we're going to get you all that information, and no, you're not missing anything. We have not published any of that yet.
I thought, David, sorry, I thought you meant like there's one in the chat right now. So if you click that link, there's a Google
right. But
Doc.
what I'm saying is that's going to be gone in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
When we end this.
Yeah. So
I'm not doing it and listening at the same time.
Yeah. We're gonna
post that with the video.
Sorry to get off on that tangent.
No,
I think it's a question many people have.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, Tamra, thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Tamra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep, thanks.